Remember Dark Messiah of Might and Magic? That 2006 game where kicking orcs off cliffs was more satisfying than any AAA combat system we've seen since? Well, after nearly 2 decades of first-person RPGs forgetting that physics-based combat exists, a new game just dropped an 8-minute gameplay trailer that looks like it actually gets it. Fatekeeper isn't trying to be the next Skyrim. It's bringing back the school of first-person fantasy where shoving enemies into spike traps is a legitimate strategy, and I'm here for it. Welcome back to Pulse Gaming. If you want to support the channel, check out our affiliate links in the description below. And if you're into RPG news and deep dives like this, hit that subscribe button because we've got more coming your way. Fatekeeper comes from Paraglacial, a studio founded by developers who used to work at Grimlore Games. These are the same people behind SpellForce 3, which was that interesting RPG-RTS hybrid that didn't quite break through mainstream, but had a dedicated following. Now they're working on Titan Quest 2, but this project is something different. This is their love letter to that specific flavor of first-person melee combat that most modern RPGs abandoned years ago. The game is heading to early access on Steam in 2026, though we don't have an exact date yet. What we do have is that announcement trailer, and it tells us a lot about what Paraglacial is going for here. Let's talk about why everyone keeps bringing up Dark Messiah, because it's not just nostalgia. That game had something special. It understood that first-person melee combat works best when the environment is your weapon. You weren't just swinging a sword at enemies. You were kicking them into fires, knocking them off ledges, crushing them with chandeliers, and turning every arena into a physics playground. Fatekeeper doesn't just reference this style. It embraces it completely. Your character can shove enemies, cast a gust of wind spell to knock them back, and throw barrels to send them flying. The trailer shows enemies ragdolling in ways that immediately bring back those Dark Messiah memories. There's slow-motion decapitation, limb targeting, and physics that actually matter in combat. This isn't window dressing. This is the core of how the game plays. And here's the thing, we've been missing this. Games like Skyrim gave us massive worlds, but turned melee combat into repetitive swinging. The Witcher 3 had great storytelling, but floaty sword fights. Elden Ring perfected the Souls-like formula, but that's a completely different feel. Fatekeeper is targeting that specific itch that hasn't been properly scratched since 2006. So what does this actually look like in action? The trailer shows a druid as the main character, which in this game means someone who uses magic, but isn't afraid to get their hands dirty with a sword. You're not locked into pure spellcasting or pure melee. It's a blend, and that opens up some interesting tactical possibilities. The combat has weight to it. When you hit an enemy, they react. When you shove someone, they stumble. The trailer shows encounters with what look like orcs, massive lizard creatures, centipedes that look genuinely disgusting, and an armored minotaur that's clearly a boss fight. Each enemy type seems to have different vulnerabilities, which means you'll need to adapt your approach. The limb targeting system is worth highlighting because it's not common in first-person games. You can aim for specific body parts, which changes how fights play out. Going for the legs might stagger a heavy enemy. Targeting the weapon arm could disarm them. It adds a layer of strategy beyond just clicking until the health bar empties. And then there's the environmental interaction. The trailer makes it clear that your surroundings matter. Spike traps, cliff edges, explosive barrels. These aren't just set pieces, they're tools. One clip shows an enemy getting knocked off a wall, and it's that exact moment where you can feel what Paraglacial is going for. They want you to feel clever for using the environment, not just for grinding stats. The game also features RPG progression, letting you build toward raw strength, precise agility, or devastating magic. The trailer doesn't show us the skill trees or upgrade systems in detail, but it's safe to assume there's depth here. This isn't just a combat sandbox, it's a full RPG with character building. Here's what caught my attention beyond the obvious Dark Messiah comparisons. Fatekeeper isn't trying to be open world. According to the Steam page, the game follows a focused narrative path, but the world still invites exploration. That's a smart choice. Open-world RPGs have dominated for years, but they often sacrifice pacing and density for size. Fatekeeper seems to be betting that players want a tighter, more curated experience. This is closer to the original Dishonored or Prey than it is to Skyrim. You have levels, not an endless map. You have designed encounters, not randomly spawned enemies. That focus means the developers can pack more detail and environmental storytelling into each area. It also means they can design combat arenas specifically for that physics-based gameplay instead of making generic encounters that work anywhere. The fantasy setting itself looks grounded. This isn't high fantasy with glowing runes everywhere. It's dirty, lived-in medieval fantasy with mud and stone and torches. The art style leans toward realism without trying to be photorealistic, which is probably the right call for an early access game from a smaller studio. Let's address the elephant in the room. Early access. We've all been burned before. Games that launch in early access with big promises and then either take years to finish or never make it out at all. But there are reasons to be cautiously optimistic here. First, Paraglacial has shipped games before. The team has experience. They're not first-time developers figuring things out as they go. Second, the trailer shows actual gameplay, not just concept footage or pre-rendered cinematics. What we're seeing appears to be the real thing, running in-engine. Third, the scope seems manageable. They're not promising a 100-hour epic. They're focusing on what they can deliver. Solid first-person combat in a focused campaign. That said, going into early access means the game will be rough around the edges. Expect bugs, balance issues, and missing features. The question is whether the core combat loop is fun enough to justify playing through those problems. The RPG genre has been splitting into different camps over the last decade. You've got the massive open-world games like Elden Ring and Starfield. You've got the CRPG renaissance with Baldur's Gate 3 and Pathfinder. You've got action RPGs like Diablo. But first-person melee RPGs, that specific subgenre that Dark Messiah pioneered, has been almost abandoned. Kingdom Come Deliverance tried to scratch this itch with a realistic medieval setting, and it found an audience. Chivalry 2 brought back medieval combat but focused on multiplayer. Mordhau did the same. But none of these games were trying to be Dark Messiah. None of them were building single-player RPG campaigns around environmental combat and physics. Fatekeeper is stepping into that gap. And if it delivers on what the trailer shows, it could remind the industry that this style of game still has a place. We don't need every RPG to be a 100-hour open-world epic. Sometimes you just want to kick an orc into a spike trap and move on with your day. So that's Fatekeeper, a first-person RPG from the developers behind SpellForce 3, coming to Steam Early Access in 2026, and bringing back the kind of physics-based melee combat we haven't seen done properly in almost 20 years. Here's my question for you. What's the most underrated first-person RPG you've ever played? Drop your answer in the comments because I want to know what hidden gems I'm missing. And if you want more RPG coverage, analysis, and news, subscribe to Pulse Gaming. We'll see you in the next one.